Folks, on Monday, President Joe Biden signed an executive order dealing with artificial intelligence. It has been talked about left and right. It is all the rage, and a lot of people are trying to figure out will be losing jobs. Also, what's going to be the impact on African Americans as well. The order creates an early set of guidelines that could be fortified by legislation and global agreements. The new standards include requiring developers of the most powerful AI systems to share their safety test results and other critical information with the U.S. government, protecting against the risk of using AI to engineer dangerous biological materials, and protecting Americans from AI-enabled fraud and deception by establishing standards and best practices for detecting AI-generated content and authenticating official content. Patrick Dix, artificial intelligence expert, joins us from Williston, South Carolina. Patrick, glad to have you. First of all, look, here's the deal. When we talk about artificial intelligence, I was talking to somebody today who was telling me about these AI movies that someone made and how that's changing the game. And so for people who don't understand any of this, I mean, how broad of the impact is artificial intelligence going to be on our society?
Artificial intelligence is going to have a devastating impact on society, particularly with the Black community. And you were just mentioning the executive order that Joe Biden signed that passed out. Back in October 2022, they came out with an AI Bill of Rights. I've read through the executive order, and for the Black community, none of that executive order would really help us. It would actually put us back at the forefront. I mean, not at the forefront, it would actually keep us at the back of the line.
And so, are we looking at the potential loss of millions of jobs? And if so, in what area?
You're looking at millions of job losses in administrative. You're looking at jobs in repetition, manufacturing. If you look at the UAW strikes that just happened and just concluded, when you look at manufacturing, those types of jobs, to sum it up, any job that is repetitive based, to where you're doing one motion and moving something from one to the next part, those jobs are going to be eliminated. And any job administrative, I'm talking about financial analysts, I'm talking about business analysts. Artificial intelligence is what we call decision support systems. We are using it to make better decisions, and they use machine learning to replicate the human mind for cost-saving measures, and also to ensure they have a consistent revenue throughout every company.
Questions from the panel. Michael, you first.
All right, Dr. Patrick, thanks for coming on today. This is something that I've been looking at because I'm also looking at possibly getting a certificate in artificial intelligence from Michigan State University. So I've been following this. You mentioned that the executive order from President Joe Biden would set African Americans back. If I heard you correctly, could you elaborate on that? He's doing the executive order is based upon Article 2 powers, but why would it set African Americans back?
Because artificial intelligence, when you hear the word artificial, is man-made, it's synthetic. One of the first parts of the order is it's learning from pre-existing data sets. So if those data sets that exist already exclude African Americans, and we're moving into a new world, for instance, where they have to pick landlord. If one of the things in there is about federal landlords, it's about employment. So if you're already producing information off of an old data set, is going to further dilute and further exclude African Americans.
Okay. All right. So it deals with the data sets. So you have to include African Americans into the data sets, because I've been studying racism when it comes to artificial intelligence. And we see this when you look at facial recognition technology. We had a case here in Detroit where you had a woman, a Black woman who was 8 months pregnant, who was identified as a suspect, and because of facial recognition, and come to find out the facial recognition was wrong. So that plays into what you're talking about, it sounds like.
Yes, it exactly plays into it. It's learning from pre-existing data sets. The technology is only as good as the information it is getting from it. Programming, we call that garbage in, garbage out. So if you're already having garbage diluted into the system, it's going to give a garbage output. You were just talking about the young lady up in Detroit. So us as African Americans, we know we have different facial structures. So if you teach that algorithm and that software to recognize specific faces, it will automatically tie on to African American men and women and say, hey, that person right there, it may be incorrect that they missed and did something, but it's automatically going to pick up on the face. You know, look at my face and look at your face. So if our faces are shaped different from European, it's automatically recognizing, hey, that's an African American. Make sure that software focuses on them more.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Kelly.
So to expand on that line of questioning, Doctor, how do you, in a perfect world, if you were to create this executive order, which to me does sound necessary because there does need to be government involvement regarding AI development, what would you have done to make sure that this is inclusive and as unbiased as possible when coming to applying to African Americans?
One of the first things I would have done is put people like myself on an executive committee or a task force. One of the major things they should have done with the algorithms in programming, there's open source code. If they want to make sure these algorithms and data sets are not going to be biased, they should have let everyone that is qualified to see them to look at open source code to say, hey, we're actually letting you see what is ran. We're actually letting you see the output. Those are the two major things I would have started off from the get-go.
Matt?
Yeah, so Patrick, thank you for coming on the show and for explaining this to us. I have a couple questions, a couple of which are kind of strange. So the first question I have is, do you have any idea about the viability of this executive order in court? Because one of the first things I thought is that it seems to me like there's an executive order between the White House, or the White House is promulgating it, but the companies are only going to be compliant as long as they choose to be compliant, right? But presumably somebody's going to be filing saying this is not constitutional because you're either impeding on our business or not allowing us to express ourselves. So what conversation is there in that space, number one? And then the second question is, to your point about open source coding, how can this meaningfully protect consumers and the citizenry? Because the thing I was immediately concerned about is a lot of this is being programmed by people who are not a part of these companies, right? Mm-hmm. So how does the government meaningfully regulate AI safety if I have the coding skills and in my basement I can build something that's dangerous? Like, how is this executive order actually going to keep people safe outside of the confines of the Fortune 500s who have signed off on it?
Well, to start off on the second question, that is actually a good question. One of the things is, if you're going to program software that is going to, say, already be biased, you must have people like myself and yourself that are qualified and have the skill set to program it. You can't have someone that is non-African American program something because they don't know about being black. So how would you know how to program something and to look at those parameters? And on the other question about the legal side of it, I have already been talking to some of the legal experts, and there's a young lady that I follow on Instagram. There's already AI lawsuits in the making. And I was talking to her about it, saying someone's going to go to court and say AI told them to, let's say, for instance, rob a store. The legalities and how deep this software can go haven't even been touched on yet. And the executive order does not even cover the deepness of saying, if I'll take it back to this. If you've ever seen the movie Megan, it's a doll to where the doll actually gets into the little girl's brain and has her commit crimes and do other things against her neighbor. So what's eventually going to happen, you potentially face artificial intelligence manipulating people to have them commit crimes. And people think that's far-fetched, but that actually can happen. So when you talk about the legalities of it, we not only must dig deep into that, we must go deeper to prevent those types of things from happening.
Roland, I have one more question, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Real quick. So, Patrick, is there any kind of like blockchain software or any mechanism where we can actually figure out who created either an AI generated, image or program for the standpoint of like forensically figuring out who may be behind either the commission of a crime or behind some kind of racist act? Is there any way to even do that with the current capabilities of AI? Because that's the problem, is there's no way to seemingly figure out who's created things and the veracity of it, whether it's a real thing that it purports to be or some AI analog. So, I mean, how is that addressed now in the software?
That's not currently addressed in one of the executive orders that the Biden administration came out with, where it was a watermark to state that it was an authentic communication. For instance, over there with the Israel and Hamas crisis going on, Israel or Hamas, I can't clearly remember which one it was, they were using images that were AI generated to depict a crowd waving a flag. So there is no research at this moment and no software that can actually track back and leave a forensic fingerprint. I've been researching, trying to locate that, and I've been talking to other people. To my knowledge from research and concurrently and continuously researching, I'm trying to locate that. There is nothing right now that can realize and validate where that is coming from. It's kind of like leaving a blank fingerprint.
Thank you.
All right. Patrick Dix, we appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so very much. All right, folks, that is it for us. Michael, Kelly, Matt, thank you so very much for joining us for this short edition of Roland Martin Unfiltered. Folks, I'm here in Mobile.